session is going to cover, first, the types of support available to you as a VISTA member, also what you need to complete before you start your service, what to do on your first day of service, benefits you'll receive as a VISTA member, and conditions of VISTA service. We're also going to have some time for your questions, so please be patient. If you shoot a question in the Q&A, by all means, you can do that throughout the presentation, and we'll try to get to it as soon as possible. So Khadija, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Let's start by looking at the two main websites that will support you throughout the year and even after your year of service. And those are My AmeriCorps and the VISTA Campus. So My AmeriCorps, or my.americorps.gov, it's where you applied to your AmeriCorps position. It's where you complete your direct deposit and other forms, and where you can access your VISTA assignment description, or VAD. It's also where, in a few weeks, you'll be able to access your living allowance statements, request certain benefits, and print a letter that verifies your VISTA service. We'll talk a little bit more about these later on. Next is the VISTA Campus, or vistacampus.gov. It's where you complete your onboarding coursework and tutorials. It also has a lot of learning resources for your entire year, and is a great resource to learn more about all of your VISTA benefits. Additionally, the VISTA Campus is where you can find the VISTA Member Handbook, which is a great source of information now and throughout your year of service. You can also connect with other VISTAs through the campus discussion forum.
And the VISTA Campus has a lot to offer. And today we will point out just a few key resources to help you start your service year strong. We highly encourage you to delve into the site because it really is an important element in helping you navigate your year of service, whether that's through building skills, obtaining professional development opportunities, but really so much more. A quick look at the navigation bar lets you know that there are materials to help you as you live and serve as a VISTA. Here's just a snapshot of what's under the Learning Resources section shown on this slide. You can also locate and reach out to other VISTAs using the VISTA Map and VISTA Forums links. Also on the VISTA Campus, we offer webinars on a range of topics related to life as a VISTA. These could be webinars such as living on the living allowance or using the Siegel AmeriCorps Education Award. And additionally, we also have webinars on the work. Some of those might be building a digital ad campaign, or another one is strategizing your funding search. So we record all of these sessions and then post them on the VISTA Campus so you can go back and watch them at any time on demand. In addition to the webinars, AmeriCorps VISTA has another training opportunity that might interest you called the AmeriCorps VISTA In-Service Training. In-service training is designed to bring together VISTA members early on in their service years in order to strengthen their skills, build their knowledge, and create networks for effective service. We're going to go into a little more detail about in-service training in next week's webinar, but just wanted to highlight that for the moment. Also on the VISTA Campus, you'll see links to online courses that were provided in past years to VISTA members. These courses included volunteer mobilization, resource development and grant writing, community engagement, and poverty in your community. These courses combined readings, assignments, online discussion, and facilitator feedback. You'll receive an email when enrollment opens for these courses in the future.
All right, so throughout your year, you will likely want and at times need support. The VISTA program involves a lot of different layers that help support the work that VISTA members are doing, as well as supporting all of you, the VISTA members. So first off is your supervisor. Your supervisor is really there to support you in your day-to-day tasks. It's important to keep your supervisor up to date with any changes in your plans. If your plans do change and maybe, for example, you cannot relocate at this time or a personal circumstance prevents you from serving, please let both your VISTA supervisor and me, Khadija Carr, know as soon as possible. Next is the CNCS State Office. Your state office is the CNCS office that oversees your project. They can be a great resource for you if you have any concerns about your project or if there's a question that your supervisor can't answer. The state office can be easily reached by email using the state abbreviation at cns.gov. So for example, Texas would be tx@cns.gov. And finally, you are also supported by VISTA headquarters, which includes the VISTA Training Unit and the VISTA Member Support Unit, among other departments. The VISTA Member Support Unit is a helpful resource for questions regarding your benefits. There is an AmeriCorps VISTA resources and contact sheet that can be found on the Starting VISTA page, and the PDF is also in the handouts to download pod in this webinar. So we really suggest that you keep it where you can find it so that you can access those resources. Of course, you can also manage your own support by taking time to navigate vistacampus.gov and my.americorps.gov so that you are familiar with them and you know where to go. And of course, when in doubt, contact your CNCS state office or the VISTA Member Support Unit through the National Service Hotline.
So now let's talk about the things you need to do before your first day of service. By now, you should have received an email that pointed you to the Starting VISTA page of the VISTA campus. If you haven't checked it out yet, please do so. I'm now going to highlight what is included there and what needs to be completed by your first day of service. So one of the requirements is to complete your onboarding forms. And these include direct deposit, your federal tax withholding or the W-4 form, your unpaid compensation information or the designation of beneficiary, and your end of service benefit selection. All of these forms are located in your MyAmeriCorps account and must be completed right away. These forms are required to complete your enrollment, and we have to have them in order to process your living allowance as well as other benefits. There are special provisions that apply to some benefits once you start service, so be sure to read all the information. We will review a few of these briefly later on in the presentation. In addition to those onboarding forms, you are also required to complete a few courses and tutorials online. These online courses are located on the Starting VISTA page of the VISTA campus and must also be completed right away. These courses give you the necessary information to start strong in your VISTA service term. A special note is that the Terms and Conditions course is linked to your MyAmeriCorps account, so you can certify your acceptance there on MyAmeriCorps. You must accept the terms and conditions of service in order to enter service as an AmeriCorps VISTA member. The forms ensure that you receive your living allowance and the other benefits you qualify for as well. And the courses will help guide you in your first few weeks as a VISTA. So please note, these must be completed before you show up at your VISTA service site. A couple of the courses, such as the Benefits of Service and VISTA Campus Overview, may not show or track completion on your end, and that's okay. You can continue on to the next course. We'll reach out to you if we see that you're missing anything.
All right, so let's talk about your first day of service. We expect you to be at your VISTA project, that is the office where you will be serving on your first day of service. That is Monday, July 22nd. And remember that as a VISTA member, you serve for a full year, which is 365 days in your term. So those of you who are relocating to serve must be moved into your new places by then. If you're unable to show up on this date, or if you are unsure where to go, make sure that you contact your supervisor or your state office immediately. And let us know by responding to any of the emails that you received from me, Khadija Carr. As a VISTA, you will be serving in a professional work environment, and you'll want to set yourself up for success. We suggest that you confirm your plans with your VISTA supervisor if you haven't been in contact with them for a while, or if you're unsure of the address that you need to report to. It would also be a good idea to confirm with your supervisor the time that you should arrive on your first day, the dress code of the organization. If you're driving, maybe you'll want to scope out the parking situation or any other special considerations such as the average commute time, or if you need to bring anything with you like paperwork, identification, etc. And if you're unable to get in contact with your supervisor, then please contact your CNCS state office. The VISTA program is not responsible for securing your housing. However, if you are in need of housing, you should definitely speak with your supervisor first, as they will likely know the area and may be able to advise you on some possible options. You can also search the discussion forums on the VISTA campus to see how other VISTA members utilize each other and resources to benefit them. I'd also recommend taking advantage of other housing options, but be aware to avoid scams. Some possible signs of scams are options that just seem way too good to be true, or emails from iffy email addresses, or listings that have distorted images or a ton of spelling mistakes. All right, so keeping on with the first day of service, and along with your new supervisor support on the first day, which again is next Monday, July 22nd, VISTA headquarters will present a webinar called Launching Your VISTA Service. It's going to be at 3 p.m. Eastern, the same exact time as this webinar. And similar to this webinar, you'll receive an email from Adobe Connect with details for joining that session. We will highlight in the webinar certain points and decisions that you must make about your benefits in terms of service. Please note that this will not be a comprehensive overview of your benefits. We are going to trust that you have reviewed the benefits page on the VISTA campus and that you understand your benefits. On that webinar, we will also administer the oath of service to you, and we will get more details to you on next Monday's webinar, including details on the new electronic oath submission process. Woohoo! No more paper oath forms. So just make sure that you know and remember your My AmeriCorps account password by Monday, because that is where the electronic oath is housed. Also, on your first day of service, your supervisor will give you a fingerprint kit and instructions as part of the required VISTA background check process. Please note that you will need to use the very specific fingerprint kit that's provided, and you will have 30 days to get fingerprinted from your first day of service. We'll also go over this in more detail during next week's webinar.
So let's talk about your service. You're about to join VISTA, a federal program that started in 1965 as Volunteers in Service to America, the acronym for VISTA. Almost 3 decades later, VISTA became part of the AmeriCorps family of programs in 1994 under the federal agency of the Corporation for National and Community Service, or CNCS. As a VISTA member, you are making a 1-year, 365-day full-time commitment to strengthen and support your community. You will strengthen, expand, and increase the reach of anti-poverty organizations and programs. You will work on projects with staff and volunteers to build capacity rather than providing direct service to people in need. At the heart of VISTA service is your VISTA assignment description, or VAD. It tells you the overarching goals of your project, explains the objectives that you're working towards during your year, and lays out the specific activities that you will do in order to accomplish the objective. All VISTA members should have a VISTA assignment description. If you don't have yours or haven't seen it, you can download a copy of it from your My AmeriCorps account. It's just at the bottom of your member homepage. It is important to know who wrote your VAD. In many cases, it will not be your direct supervisor, perhaps. So please be sure to discuss how the VAD was developed and who wrote it in one of your first check-ins with your supervisor. If you can't by chance find your VAD in your My AmeriCorps account, or maybe it doesn't align with what you agreed to do in your interview, please follow up directly with your supervisor when you're on site next week. It's very typical, very common for VISTAs to really need to flesh out their VADs at the start of their service year, so that's a great opportunity to bring that up with your supervisor if necessary. And next week, we will provide more details related to the capacity building service of VISTA and your VAD. Please make sure you have your VAD by your first day of service.
All right, so before we continue, we're going to pause just to see if there are any questions about what you need to do before and on your first day of service. So at this time, we'll only be answering some of the questions in the Q&A pod, but at the end of the webinar, we will answer additional questions that you have. But right now, just things that you need to do before and on your first day of service. Any questions related to that? Chris, are you seeing any questions related?
So there were a couple in the chat, and it looks like in the Q&A as well, asking about the pre-service courses that are needed to be done. It looks like a few had only seen two. There are two major ones, the terms and conditions and the civil rights and responsibilities. But on the starting VISTA page of the VISTA campus, that's the main page where it lists what you need to do pre-service. And even in your first few weeks of service, this link is sent in our emails, and I think it's sent when you're first notified of being enrolled in the VISTA program. That starting VISTA page includes about 6 pre-service courses to look over. And I think we had a list of them on a previous slide that I could try to find, but there should be 6, not 2. And if you have any questions on that, feel free to reach out. You can email vistatraining@cns.gov or respond to Khadijah in any of her emails.
Awesome. I do see another question here that's asking, is our supervisor the same person that we interviewed with? So it's likely that that's the same person. I would reach out to that individual to clarify whether or not they're your supervisor. And if you're still in doubt after reaching out to them, feel free to reach out to your CNCS state office to clarify who that supervisor is. I did also see an email about an orientation that is going to be taking place on your first day of service, and whether or not our Launching Your VISTA Service webinar is a part of that mass orientation. So yes, it should be. All of your supervisors have been notified to clear your schedule for this time block so that you can participate in the Launching Your VISTA Service webinar. So that is included in that on-site orientation.
Looks like a question, will you reach out if there's anything missing before Monday? And that's a great question, and yes. So if we see that you're missing any forms or courses, we will reach out to you using your email address that's listed in your My AmeriCorps account. You'll likely get an email from the VMSU about this. So that's a good kind of rule to go by. So if you don't hear from us, you're probably looking good. But just make sure, again, that we're contacting you by the email address listed in My AmeriCorps. So if that ever needs to be updated, please update it.
Right. I'm not seeing any more questions about before and on the first day of service. So we're going to continue on, and if any questions come into your mind, just go ahead and type them into the Q&A, and we'll be sure to get to those. As a VISTA member, there are a lot of benefits available during your year of service. And as you've seen, this page of the VISTA campus contains an overview of all of your benefits. Some benefits, such as the living allowance, are available to all VISTA members, while other benefits may only be useful for some of you, such as the child care assistance. It is your responsibility to look up the details and action steps required to make use of your benefits. If you have questions about benefits, make a note to review the benefits section on the VISTA campus after this webinar. Right now, we will provide details about some of the benefits that seem to generate the most questions from VISTA members.
So let's begin with talking about the living allowance, since most people like getting paid. From the benefits page on the VISTA campus, if you click on the living allowance link, you will find information on the living allowance benefits. There are additional links at the bottom under resources where you can find out more information about your living allowance. These include tips for how to live on the living allowance and other tips as well. And here you will also find a living allowance calendar that shows the dates of pay and access to the living allowance rates. So here's where you would go to find, if you want to look up your county that you're serving in, you could see what the living allowance rate is for that county or parish or wherever throughout the country. If you don't know what the amount of your living allowance is, this is the place to go. You can also ask your VISTA supervisor or the CNCS state office or the National Service Hotline in that order. And speaking of the living allowance, you might be interested to know when you are going to get paid. So we're going to ask if anyone knows when you will be getting your first payment. And if so, please type your answer in the chat box, and we're going to kind of see what comes up. I'm seeing just a few responses at the moment. See, August 9th, August 16th, August 15th, a lot of August 9th. Yeah, I'm going to let this go for just a little. Oh, July 22nd. That's really quick.
That's so quick.
So, I don't know if we have this. We'll go ahead and give the answer, which is August 9th. So the vast majority of you are correct. August 9th, Friday. So VISTAs are paid every 2 weeks on Fridays. And while this information applies to most VISTAs, some of you may be paid directly by your VISTA sponsor. So we ask that you please ask your VISTA supervisor if you are paid directly by them. Federal taxes are withheld from your living allowance, but state taxes are not. And you must determine your own level of responsibility for state taxes. We suggest that you check in with your state tax office or the comptroller for more details. If you are paid by the VISTA program, you can access all of your living allowance statements in your MyAmericorps account. It'll be under the My Living Allowance tab. If you are paid directly by your VISTA sponsor, you will get pay statements directly from them, from your project. Your VISTA service does not qualify you to receive unemployment compensation after your service is over. This is because you're not an employee of the federal government, nor of your project site, so no unemployment insurance is provided. In order to ensure that you receive your living allowance, it is critical to complete the direct deposit information correctly. If either the routing number or account number you entered for direct deposit is not correct, you will not receive your living allowance payment as scheduled. And please note, if that's the case, you would have to wait at least 2 more weeks until the next pay period in order to be paid. You can find the routing number and account number on your checks if you have checks, or you can go to your online banking site and look at an account statement. You may also want to call your bank just to be sure, just to be sure you have the correct information. Because we certainly recommend that you double and triple check that the numbers are accurate in your MyAmericorps account due to, again, we don't want you to miss your first pay. It's 98% of VISTAs get it correct, but for those that get it incorrect, you have to wait those additional 2 weeks. So double and triple check, please.
Related to the living allowance and income is public assistance that may be tied to income or money that you are receiving. If you are already receiving public assistance, such as TANF or LIHEAP, then your VISTA living allowance or any other payments you receive from the VISTA program should not affect the level of assistance that you receive. Likewise, in applying for new public assistance benefits, your living allowance should not be factored in when determining the level of benefits that you receive. The sole exception to this provision is SNAP, formerly called food stamps. If you enroll in SNAP now or at any time during your year of service, your living allowance and other VISTA payments will be counted as income in calculating your eligibility and benefit level. If you are already receiving SNAP prior to enrolling in the VISTA program, then your benefit will remain unchanged. Public benefits are managed by state or local entities, and CNCS is not in any way involved in how they are administered. So you'll want to speak directly with a caseworker for advice on what to do. In about 2 weeks, you will be able to access, view, and print your service letters from your homepage in my.americorps.gov. And when applying for public assistance, you will be able to print a letter that cites the authority for what's called income disregard from your account.
And after successfully completing your service, you are eligible for one of two benefits: the Education Award or the cash stipends. For the Education Award, this can be used to pay federal student loans or to pay for education at any Title IV institution, which is an institution that accepts federal funds. You have 7 years to use it, and you cannot transfer it to anyone else. For the cash stipends, this is paid out via direct deposit at the very end of your service, and that amount is $1,800. So it looked like there were a couple of questions in the chat about that. The most important detail to know is that if you are unsure of which benefit to choose, I suggest that you select the Education Award for now, because then you have up until the end of your 10th month of service to switch to the cash stipend if you choose to do so. Once you start service, you are not able to switch from the cash stipend to the Education Award. So when you choose the cash stipend, it is a final decision. But if you select the Education Award, you have some flexibility, at least up until the end of your 10th month of service. More specific details regarding Education Award eligibility, institutions that may match the Education Award, and other things to know can be found on the VISTA campus as well as on nationalservice.gov. And you still have up until next Monday. If you already made a decision on cash stipend, but you just heard that information and want to switch to the Education Award, you can go in right now and switch it back up until your start dates. Over that weekend, you cannot make any changes. So, for anyone who has student loans, there are ways you can postpone repayment of federally backed student loans during your year of service. If you chose the Education Award, you can request forbearance for your federally backed student loans, which means that you do not make monthly loan payments during your year of service, and that you can request the National Service Trust to pay the accrued interest on your federal loan after you complete your year. Just be aware that the interest payment is considered taxable income. Federal loan forbearance is not guaranteed, and you must initiate the process by submitting a loan forbearance request in your MyAmericorps account. You will be able to do this approximately a week into your service using the My Education Award link, which will appear in your MyAmericorps account. So about a week after your start date, if you select the Education Award, you're going to get a new link on the left-hand side of your member homepage that says My Education Award. That's where you would initiate this process. If you select the end of service cash stipend, or if you have private student loans, you may request loan deferment instead of forbearance. And deferment means that you apply directly with your lender, giving the reason of economic hardship. Also, you may be able to have your accrued interest paid by the Department of Education if you have federally subsidized loans that are deferred. You also may be able to have a portion of your Perkins loans, if you have those, forgiven. Loan deferment is not guaranteed and may not be offered by all lenders, and you should check with your lender for specifics. Neither of these options will happen automatically. You will need to request them through the appropriate process. For more details on everything we just covered, go to the Ed Award tutorial, which is at nationalservice.gov/resources/Ed Award. There's a lot of good information there. And then after you have officially started service, you can go to your MyAmericorps account to submit your loan forbearance request with CNCS. Remember that it is your responsibility to submit the forbearance request and check on its status. So don't forget, this will be about a week after your start date. At the end of your year, it is also your responsibility to submit any education award payment requests as well as the interest accrual payment requests. So you would have to go in at the end of your year and make those requests in your MyAmericorps account.
Next, let's look at healthcare benefits. The VISTA program offers two different health benefit options. One for VISTAs who have health coverage like insurance or Medicaid, and the other for VISTAs who don't have health coverage. If you have health insurance or other coverage, then you are eligible to enroll in the VISTA Healthcare Allowance, which provides reimbursement up to $7,900 for qualifying out-of-pocket healthcare expenses. You can use the healthcare allowance towards out-of-pocket expenses like co-payments for office visits, services, or prescriptions, medications and medical supplies, and meeting your annual deductible. Please note that the allowance will not reimburse you for the cost of buying health insurance or paying monthly premiums. Now, if you don't have any health coverage, then you are eligible to enroll in the AmeriCorps VISTA Health Benefit Plan. This is really a safety net plan that covers basic health care needs. It covers many of the basic services with very low copays, but it has some limitations and it does not cover pre-existing conditions. Both of these options also include limited dental and vision benefits, and both options are free, yes, free, and they cover only you, the VISTA member. To receive a benefit, you must enroll. There is no automatic enrollment, and in about 2 weeks, you will get an email from IMG, it's the VISTA Health Plan Administrator, and that email will include instructions on how to enroll in either of those plans. VISTAs who want to seek coverage through the health insurance marketplace can take advantage of a special enrollment period of 60 days, and that's from the start and end dates of your VISTA service. So go to healthcare.gov to shop for plans and see what subsidies you qualify for. But to enroll during a special enrollment period, you will need to call the marketplace.
There are other benefits available to VISTA members, and as we previously mentioned, some benefits may only be available to some of you. These include benefits such as relocation and child care. For relocation, for those of you who are moving more than 50 miles from your home of record to your service site, you may qualify for a relocation travel allowance and one-time settling in allowance. If you are eligible for financial travel support, you should have already received communication from the VISTA Member Support Unit, or VMSU. If you relocated more than 50 miles to your service site and have not yet received an email confirmation, you can inquire about your eligibility status by emailing vmsu@cns.gov. And that email is listed on the slide. You can also find it in the resources and context document that's included in the handouts and files to download. AmeriCorps VISTA offers a child care benefit to members who qualify. To qualify, you must meet specific eligibility requirements, such as household income limits, and you must be the parent or legal guardian of a child under age 13 who is residing with you. For more information on this and to apply, you can visit AmeriCorpsChildCare.com, and that address is also listed on the slide and in the handouts and files to download.
As a VISTA member, you have certain leave benefits available during your year of service. You have 10 days of personal leave and 10 days of sick leave available to you, but make sure to read the VISTA member handbook regarding the time periods that you're permitted to use your leave. Additionally, you will be able to observe the national holidays that are recognized by your service site. So, for example, if your site observes Labor Day as a day off, then you would also have that day off. However, you do not get excused leave for federal holidays that are not recognized by your site. So, for example, if your site does not give its staff a holiday for Veterans Day, then you are also expected to serve on that day. Unless, of course, you request and receive approval for 1 day of personal leave on Veterans Day. You also do not get excused leave if your site is closed for several days or for an extended period of time. For example, if maybe over the winter holidays, as you would then need to work with your supervisor to either still serve during that time or to use personal leave. Your supervisor and you will monitor your time and attendance, and you will send any leave request to your supervisor. So there is no VISTA program standard for that. It's all done through your supervisor, and you will use sick leave and personal leave separately. They're not interchangeable, those two. All right, so I know that we just covered a ton of information, and as you have heard, as a VISTA, you have access to a lot of benefits during your year, and we hope that you now know a little bit more about how to find out more about those benefits and also what action steps are needed to take in order to make use of them. So let's review a little bit with you some of the key terms and conditions of VISTA service. We know that many of you have already completed the VISTA terms and conditions online. Great job. But we do want to make sure that everyone is clear on those conditions. So we're going to do a quick interactive activity to review the main conditions of VISTA service. Here's how it works. I'm going to read a service activity, and using your annotation tool, indicate whether you believe that the answer is yes or no. To use the annotation tool, first select the square icon in the drawing tool pane on the left side of the slide to activate the annotation toolbar. Next, you'd select the arrow next to the square to expand your shape options and select the check mark or the X. Select anywhere on the slide to place your shape in response to the statement on the screen. Please do not drag the symbol on the screen. A simple click will suffice here. And please note that if you're watching this on your phone or a tablet, then the annotation function will not work. In that case, you can feel free to type your response into the chat box. All right, let's get started with the first question.
All right, so first question. I can voice my political opinion using social media where my profile identifies me as an AmeriCorps VISTA member. Yes or no? And again, to use that annotation tool, just click on this square on the left-hand side. There's a little drop down in the bottom right corner of that square. You can select a checkbox or an X. And just try to keep them small when placing your check or X. So it looks like a whole bunch of no's. We have a few in the yes category, a lot of no's coming in the chat as well. a couple large squares, which can't quite identify. Looks like it's kind of covering both. Same with the large check. But vast majority are no, and the answer is yes. You can have VISTA listed on your social media profile and voice your political opinion. However, you cannot represent yourself as a spokesperson for AmeriCorps, VISTA, CNCS, or your sponsor. Additionally, you can voice political opinions on your own time, but not while serving at your site or using any of the equipment at your site. And yes, that would include the Wi-Fi network. Also, you should not put the CNCS or AmeriCorps VISTA logo as your profile picture when voicing political or other sensitive opinions on social media. When in doubt, keep your VISTA service and political activity completely separate, and you can always refer to the Hatch Act for more detailed information.
All right, so I see that's a little tricky. You've been called tricky in the chat box, Chris. Let's see if they think this one is tricky as well. I can demonstrate in a political rally. Yes or no? Seeing a ton of yeses. Someone outlined the yes to emphasize just how yes it is. All right, I see one lone dot on the no. We got you in the chat. I love it. Tons of yeses of all kinds of varieties, stars, checks, dots, and squares. 2 no's. All right, let's go ahead and reveal that correct answer, which is yes. As long as you are not identified as a VISTA or perceived to be a VISTA. And that note on perceived to be a VISTA is really important, because some of you may be serving in a small town or a neighborhood where you're not necessarily wearing your VISTA polo, but people know that you are a VISTA member. So when in doubt about a specific activity, it's really best to avoid it initially and consult with your supervisor or your state office for approval or for some further clarification.
Okay, next up. I can ask people to donate money to a partisan political candidate as long as it's on my own time and I'm not identified as a VISTA member. Yes or no? We'll give it about 30 seconds as these answers come in. So far, it looks pretty split on the yes and no's. I see a in the chat. Some thinking going on. Wow, it looks pretty even. I was going to say maybe slightly towards the yeses.
Wow, it's like an even split right now.
Yeah. And in the chat, looks similar in the chat, a pretty good split. Maybe a few more yeses. So the answer is no. You cannot raise money on behalf of a partisan political candidate at any time during your VISTA year. It doesn't matter if it's off-duty or at home or while not identified as a VISTA. The Federal Hatch Act prohibits all fundraising for partisan political candidates. You can, however, raise funds in support of an issue on your own time and not identified as a VISTA. So the difference there being an issue versus a partisan political candidate.
All right, let's try for another. I can have outside employment and or earn additional income while I'm serving as a VISTA member. I'm seeing yeses strictly in the chat and on the screen. No one is in opposition so far. Okay, we've got one lone no, strong and firm. I see yes, but cannot conflict with service in the chat. See another no, as long as it's approved. Yes, as long as it does not affect your site. And a ton on supervisor approval. And with that, I think we can go ahead and reveal that answer as yes. While you are allowed to have outside part-time employment, there are a few key policy items that you should keep in mind. The first is that outside employment must not conflict with your project, service, or your service hours, nor can it conflict with any applicable law or VISTA program requirements or policies. Also, under no circumstances may a VISTA member be an employee of or a contractor for the sponsor or project to which they are assigned to serve. Additionally, your supervisor must approve and agree that the outside work will not interfere with your VISTA project. If the work does interfere, the VISTA may be asked to either end employment or end VISTA service. Only part-time outside employment is allowed while serving as a VISTA member, and you will have to complete the outside employment request form, which is available within the outside employment policy, which can be found on the VISTA campus, and that must be submitted to your supervisor. For more information regarding the outside employment policy, you can check out the VISTA campus at vistacampus.gov/resources/outside employment policy.
So we've provided you with a lot of information today, but before we move to questions, let's kind of recap what you need to complete by tomorrow so we can verify the information prior to your first day of service, which again, your first day will be next Monday, July 22nd, 2019. Within your MyAmericorps account, you can complete the below forms, or the forms listed below at the top. Direct deposits, your federal tax withholding, which is the W-4 election, your unpaid compensation information, which is your designation of beneficiary, and your end of service benefit selection. Within VISTA Campus, or vistacampus.gov, you will need to complete the below courses that are listed at the bottom. So it does look like there's about 6. The most urgent are the VISTA terms and conditions and the civil rights and responsibilities. Those are the big ones because you cannot start service without having accepted the terms of VISTA service. But you can see there's also the benefits of service, the mission and legacy of VISTA, VISTA Campus overview, and a way to test your knowledge.
All right, thanks for that, that brief action item follow-up, Chris. So now that we've really taken care of those items, we really want to know what you thought. How can we improve this presentation for future VISTA members? Please take a few minutes or moments to complete a brief survey. Thank you so much in advance for your feedback. You'll see that just under the chat is now a survey link pod. You can click on that survey link and click Browse To, and it'll take you directly to the survey. Otherwise, Julie has graciously posted the link to the survey in the chat box. While you contribute your feedback in the survey, we did notice that a ton of questions were coming in, and we will have time to take those, as many as we can. So are there any questions on what you need to do before and on your first day of service? So go ahead and post your questions in the Q&A, and we will respond accordingly. All right, let's see what we've got.
Okay, so just looking through, kind of scrolling through, see what we have here. A lot of questions. Would you get your educational award the year after your service? So I believe that's, yeah, just asking kind of when it will be available to you. So yes, after you complete 1 year or your 365 days of service, the day after you exit, that education award and that amount will be available to you in your MyAmericorps account. So at that point, you can log in and If you want to pay off loans, you can request that through your MyAmeriCorps account, or if you want to pay for college tuition coming up at a Title IV institution, you can do that as well. And again, it's all requested through your MyAmeriCorps account.
All right. I did see a question regarding the forms and whether or not they could be scanned and submitted via email. So we will need these pre-service forms to show as completed in your MyAmeriCorps portal. This is actually what is used to activate you in the portal, so we'll need those to be completed in there and not scanned or emailed because it is tied directly to that MyAmeriCorps account. Let's see what else.
I think I'd seen one person also, just want to mention, one person post that their start date wasn't July 22nd. If any of you have heard otherwise, a different start date, you should contact Khadijah. Just let her know. It can just be a quick email. Hey, I was told I should be starting on Wednesday, not Monday. Just let us know. Communication is key here, just so that everyone is aware. But yeah, please reach out if that's the case. But you all should be starting next Monday.
Okay, I see. Do we need to print out the VAD, or the VISTA assignment description? So the VAD is really an excellent resource. It's what you're going to be using for the entirety of your VISTA service. So printing it out is certainly a great idea. Having a copy of this when you meet with your supervisor and to refer to at any time is generally good practice. It includes all of the outcomes and objectives that you are to be doing throughout your VISTA service. It is a document that can be adapted, but having it is certainly a good idea, and referring to it when speaking to your supervisor is useful as well. Let's see. I see, what does VAD stand for? Good question. So the VAD is the VISTA assignment description, and it's really just a position description or a VISTA assignment specific to your project and what you will be doing. So everybody should have a different VAD or VISTA assignment description. All right, another question regarding forms and how to check to see if you have completed all of the forms necessary to begin VISTA service. So there is not really a way for you to check that you have or have not completed all of your forms, but the VISTA Member Support Unit has and will continue to send out emails to folks who have yet to complete certain forms. So please keep an eye out on those emails. And if you have not received an email regarding missing forms, then you should consider yourself in good standing. All right, I see another question. Should we bring our laptops on the first day of service, or will computers be provided? So I would definitely reach out to your VISTA supervisor, but you should know that all VISTAs are supposed to have working access to computers, printers, scanners, and really anything you would need to be successful in your VISTA year. But feel free to reach out to your supervisor just to remind them that those are things that should be available to you. But you should have them available to you on Monday, July 22nd, your first day of service.
And I know, Khadijah, you touched on this earlier, but I saw another couple of questions come in, and I just want to reiterate that the second webinar where you will swear in, take your oath of service, is at the same exact time next Monday. So your site will probably have some training for you on Monday. It's your first day. They'll have an orientation for you. But that webinar at 3 p.m. Eastern time, or the same time as this webinar, that should be worked into your on-site orientation and training. So your supervisor should be well aware of this and have that all set aside for you to attend. And if not, again, just let us know. Communication is key.
All right, I did see a question regarding the forbearance request, and someone, I believe Emily says, I'm having trouble creating that forbearance request. So for all of those folks who have tried to create a forbearance request, please note that you do not yet have access. So once you've started VISTA service, your account in My AmeriCorps, once that's been activated, usually within a couple of days of starting, you will have access to be able to go in and create that forbearance request. All right. See a question asking, where do I find my member ID or that NSPID? So your NSPID is your national service, essentially your PIN number, your ID. It's traced directly to you, and that's found on your My AmeriCorps account on the home page.
A couple quick questions. Someone asked, if I'm serving in Washington, D.C., what would my state office email be? And you had it correct. It was dc@cns.gov. So remember, it's just the state initials at cns.gov to contact your state office. And another one was asking if daily travel to our site is reimbursed. And no, VISTA does not reimburse for daily mileage to and from your project site. There may be certain projects out there that provide assistance for that, but VISTA does not reimburse for that. Now, if your project asks you to do something different where you aren't, maybe you have to go to an event in a different city for a day, a special event for your VISTA project, your project should reimburse you for that if it's something out of the ordinary and you're going to an area that's different from your typical location. But the daily travel, no, that's not reimbursed by VISTA.
All right. Let's see. I see a question that says, if we're allowed time off and vacation time at our VISTA location, does that affect our stipend? So no, all VISTAs have access to 10 days of medical or sick leave in addition to 10 days of personal leave. So using either of the two leave options or benefits does not affect your living allowance. You will be paid for days that you are either sick or on vacation.
I see a question, when do we need to complete all the courses by? That deadline is tomorrow. We want the pre-service courses and the forms to be completed by tomorrow, Wednesday, July 17th. And again, if you have any questions on how to complete those, the VMSU would be a good resource, or again, we could help out as well. For next Monday's webinar, does our supervisor need to attend as well? Great question. We'd recommend it just because it's pretty cool to see the swearing-in ceremony, especially at the end, and having all the VISTA swear in, and it's your first day as a VISTA. It's a proud moment. So we recommend that your supervisor attends, but it's not required. It's not totally necessary.
Okay, I did see a question regarding the Education Award and if it's possible to use the Education Award for classes that are not necessarily at an institution for higher education. So it depends on what the institution or organization is. So in order to use the Education Award, you need to make sure that the institution that's offering those classes is in partnership with or solely an institution that is called Title IX, and those are institutions that accept federal financial aid.
Looks like if we're looking for outside employment, should we get approval before looking at or begin applying? So, well, there's kind of a couple things here. So yeah, I would definitely check with your supervisor to get at least informal approval, at least an okay. Yeah, that if your supervisor says, yeah, go for it, look for something, then yes, I would certainly recommend checking with them first before going through all the application processes and whatnot. But then again, as Khadija mentioned earlier, there's also a form, an outside employment form. It's really short, super short. It's like 1 page, and it's really easy to complete. That will be required once you actually attain employment, outside employment, to complete and have your supervisor sign, and that's held on file as well.
All right. Another education award related question. Is the education award separate from the payments toward the interest accrual option? So yes, the education award amount is separate from the interest payment, and both of these need to be requested separately. So once you finish your service, you will submit a request to have your interest accrual paid off by the National Service Trust, and that is only interest that was accrued while you were serving as a VISTA. So anything that was accrued prior to your VISTA service will not be paid for by the National Service Trust.
A couple healthcare benefit questions coming in. One is when can we sign up for the health? Well, they ask health insurance. Again, it's not insurance. Just want to clarify. It's a health benefit because it doesn't exactly qualify for insurance, although there are some similarities with the health benefit plan. That you will be able to do so about a week after you start service. So at the very end of July, you should expect an email from IMG, and it'll give you details on how to sign up. You'll create an account on their site, and you'll either get the health benefit plan or the health care allowance. One of the other questions is, if I already have health care, will it cover prescription costs? So yeah, if you already have health coverage, you would be eligible for the health care allowance, which is a reimbursement benefit. So if you have to pay prescription costs, say, for example, on a monthly basis, then each month you would pay up front for the prescription, and then you could submit a reimbursement request to IMG to be reimbursed for the amount you spent on the prescription costs. And one other on healthcare, what happens if you're currently under your parents' healthcare insurance, but in the middle of my VISTA service year, I will turn 26 and will no longer be on their coverage. So yes, this question comes up a lot, and it's a great question, and that's totally possible. So if you currently have health care coverage, you could sign up for the health benefit or health care allowance, which is a reimbursement. And then if something changes mid-year where you no longer have coverage, you would just need to let IMG know. You would just need to reach out, either call or email. They have plenty of contact options. Let them know your situation, ideally like 30 days in advance. Let them know, hey, in 30 days, I'm no longer going to have health insurance. What do I do? They'll let you know all the proper steps. And it's a pretty smooth transition. They'll get you switched from one of the health benefits to the other. Regardless of your situation, they'll work with you to switch it over depending on what's going on. So the key there is just stay in communication. If possible, try to do so about 30 days in advance so that everything transitions smoothly.
I did see a question regarding how leave works for religious holidays. So it's similar as what we described. It's actually the same, right? You have 10 personal days of vacation time that you can use however you choose. You can use it for religious holidays or vacation or a mental health day, or however you decide to use that personal leave is however you choose to use it. Oh, I see another question. Are we expected to work 40 hours a week, or is the supervisor going to give us our hours? So I would say that most VISTAs have 40-hour work weeks. The typical thing we see is 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. But that's all really dependent on your service site specifically. There is no hour requirement by the end of the year, so I know you may be familiar with some projects having a maximum or a minimum number of hours needed to complete a given term, but that is not the case for VISTA. So it's just a full-term commitment, and whatever that is at your individual project site is what it is for you.
Okay, so going through checking. Are we required to sign up for the health benefits? No, you're not required. You can opt out if you wish. But I just want to mention that, nothing is deducted from your living allowance by signing up for the health care coverage. So it's a great benefit. So even if you already have health care coverage, even if you just have a few out-of-pocket expenses per year, that health care allowance can help reimburse some of those costs. But you aren't required to. You can certainly opt out. Usually seen any others?
Oh, I do see one. For next Monday's webinar, does our supervisor need to attend as well? So yes, we recommend that your supervisor attend and they can serve as a witness during that oath of service portion. However, if they are unavailable, then another staff person or even another VISTA can suffice as that witness. Let's see. I see another question. Is a mental health day sick or personal leave? I would say that it would be a sick leave personally. If you have used all of your sick days and want to use a mental health day for a personal day, then you have that option as well.
And another question, if we have no hour limit, can we work 10 hours a day and get an extra day off? So that is probably a no, but it's something you could bring up with your supervisor if they offer a flexible work schedule that really works with your VISTA assignments and your VAD, where doing that for 4 days at 10 hours can complete your VAD assignments. Something that's worth bringing up, but it's not something we here could say a yes or no to.
I did see a question in the chat, and it may be applicable to a few other folks. Is a second set of fingerprints necessary if I have already submitted fingerprints during the first year as a VISTA? So it depends on your VISTA term. If you have just finished your VISTA term and are now joining on for another year, then it will most likely be a no. But I would hazard a guess and say that most of you are first-time VISTAs and will need to submit fingerprints. Now, in the same breath as fingerprints, there is fingerprints that you need to submit to the VISTA program directly to VISTA headquarters, and there may be additional screening that's done strictly by your project. So that may be an additional set of fingerprints, and you'll need to check in with your supervisor to clarify that if you've received additional fingerprints on your first day. Do not be shy. Feel free to type your questions into the Q&A box, and we will get to them. Oh, I do see a very good one. Is our VISTA leader the same as our supervisor? Great question. So no, your VISTA leader and your supervisor are not the same. Your VISTA leader is someone who has either done another VISTA or AmeriCorps program prior to, or the Peace Corps, and is doing additional duties and often manages or assists VISTA members in tasks, but doesn't supervise you as a VISTA member. So both your VISTA leader and co-VISTAs and yourself should have a direct supervisor, and they are not the same. No, VISTA leaders and supervisors are not the same. Excellent question.
We do have a question regarding days off and on for leave. You said that if your site is closed for several days, we would need to work with our supervisor to either use personal days or still serve. My question is, how many days of a site being closed is considered extended? So that's a great question, and typically what we would say is more than 2 days. So 3 consecutive days if your project is closed for 3 consecutive days. It's not too common to have 3 consecutive days just off. So 3 or more would be in the extended area. Now, if that just happens one time per year around another holiday, you might want to check with your state office on this to get clarification, just to double check that whether you need to have work with your supervisor to actually work one of those days, or again, yeah, as mentioned previously, a lot of this is just communication, making sure you're on top of things and communicating with your state office and supervisor to make sure everyone's up to speed and on the same page.
So I do see a question regarding VISTA leaders again. I'm glad that what we're saying is generating questions. So the questions regarding VISTA leaders and whether all projects have a VISTA leader. So the answer is no. Not all projects have a VISTA leader. VISTA leaders really serve in large VISTA projects or by region. So really what they do is expand and build capacity of the VISTA members. So they might lead or coordinate within the project where they are serving, but they don't function as a CNCS employee or as a supervisor, as I mentioned. So really what they're helping to do is to help your project market the VISTA positions and recruit VISTAs, also to make sure that they can help retain VISTAs and also ensure that you all are learning at the rate that is necessary for you to exceptionally, I would say, complete your VISTA service. So no, I would say mostly large VISTA projects or regions will have VISTA leaders, but not all of them. I do see another one. When do fingerprints need to be done by? So August 21st, 30 days after your start of service, which is July 22nd, is when your prints are due. And again, you will receive a fingerprint kit on your first day of service. Your supervisor should have one for you. The kit includes 2 fingerprint cards. They are blank, and they have pre-printed information in some of the fields. You'll need to fill this out at a local fingerprinting location or a police department. And then once you've completed and filled out those 2 fingerprint cards, you will mail them in using a prepaid shipping label also provided by your supervisor. And what we'll do with it is we'll generate an FBI report. And if you have any disclosed criminal history either on your application or in your disclosure form, then we will match it up against the FBI report. If everything lines up and you've already been approved to serve, then you should not hear from us. But if there's anything unexpected or undisclosed, on your FBI report, then you will hear from us. And I do see another question. Am I required to pay for my own fingerprinting? So there may be a charge with your fingerprints, but there may not be. There is a $25 subsidy included in your first living allowance that's meant to offset the cost of fingerprinting. Some folks don't pay anything for fingerprints, and some folks might. So it really all depends on the location. Oh, I do see another question related to fingerprints. I finished my NCCC AmeriCorps term in 2018. Do I need to get fingerprinted again? So yes, we are a very secure program. We do not share the results or any associated documents of your FBI report or any other criminal history related activity, even within the AmeriCorps family. So yes, you will need to be fingerprinted again if you've previously served with one of our AmeriCorps sister programs.
If you do not use your leave, will you lose it or get paid for unused leave? So you got to use that leave. You won't be paid for any unused leave, so might as well use that personal time. And then another regard on the fingerprints, I finished my NCCC AmeriCorps term in November 2018. Khadijah was just kind of touching on this. Congratulations, by the way, on completing that term. Do I need to pay for fingerprinting again? Yes, you will need to go through the VISTA program to do this fingerprinting process.
I did see that someone says that in their area it costs $50 to get fingerprinted. Again, we do provide a $25 fingerprinting subsidy. Your supervisor has the opportunity to additionally or further subsidize that $25 that we give you, but it is a standard $25 subsidy that all VISTA members get. And the VISTA program doesn't provide additional funds outside of that. So I would check in with your VISTA supervisor to see if there are any additional funds available to get you fingerprinted. I see, how do we prove that we attended this webinar today? Is there something that I need to do? So there is no need. We are in the digital world and all of your logins are being recorded. So no need to prove to me that you were here. You don't have to send me an email. I know who you are and I know you were here. Thanks for asking though. Are you seeing any more questions, Chris?
I don't believe so. Well, if I'm a recent grad, should I request forbearance soon or wait for my grace period to end? And that's a great question, and it may depend on when your grace period ends. If your grace period ends during your VISTA service year, I would say go ahead and request forbearance. That way it goes through from 1 year for your full VISTA year. And the one advantage there is, the National Service Trust will pay the interest accrued if you're in forbearance. That is accrued over your year of service. But if you have a grace period that extends further past your VISTA service year, that's going to be a decision on your end as to whether, as to what would be more beneficial to your personal situation.
I do see a question regarding gear, VISTA gear. You, in about 2 weeks or so after starting service, will receive some instructions on how to order VISTA gear. There's a ton of freebies for you, including a Nalgene water bottle, my personal favorite freebie. But if you have any particular questions in the meantime, you can always email vistagear@cns.gov. I'm going to pop that email address into the chat in case you want to get a little sneak peek or ask any questions about any gear that you may have. All right, looks like we have enough time for about one question. So if you've got something burning, please type it into the Q&A box at this time. Okay, so I do see one more really great question. After serving with AmeriCorps, there is non-competitive potential to acquire a job in the federal government. Does this include the Peace Corps? So I'm just going to add a little bit to that first part of your question, Christopher, and that's after serving with AmeriCorps VISTA, you have the benefit of non-competitive eligibility, which is really a special hiring authority granted to returned Peace Corps volunteers and AmeriCorps VISTA alum. So long as you meet the minimum requirements for the job, you can sort of cut through some of the bureaucracy that is included in the standard hiring process. In fact, not all jobs for NCE or non-competitive eligibility need to be posted on USA Jobs, which is the site that houses most federal jobs. So they can be posted elsewhere. It could be on the VISTA Campus Job Board or on the Peace Corps job link. The Corporation for National and Community Service, the federal agency where Chris and I are headquarters, it's the agency that houses the AmeriCorps programs, including AmeriCorps VISTA, and Peace Corps is another federal government agency. Both of these organizations are ones that accept folks that have non-competitive eligibility, as we are a federal agency. So yes, you are able to use your non-competitive eligibility to apply for employment at the Peace Corps or at the Corporation for National and Community Service. Thank you so much for your questions. And I think with that, we can go ahead and wrap this up. You all have a ton of great questions, and we hope that you'll continue to generate more for next Monday's session. So thanks so much again for joining us on this call. We look forward to seeing you again on Monday, again your first day of service, for your required Launching Your VISTA Service webinar. We hope that you have a wonderful week, and from all of us here at VISTA and CNCS, thank you so much.